Paradise City 2018 is please present your next,
Melanie.
Melanie.
Thank you.
I gotta go do a sketch duel. Enjoy.
All right, bye.
See you at the competition.
Oh yes.
Way to suck up to the judges.
Gotta get those brownie points.
Wow, hi guys. Thank you for the Q&A. I got my first big poster banner for signing, which is very helpful, and I guess at my next Q&A I'll have like a full Keith Silverstein PowerPoint presentation. I wasn't sure I was doing the Q&A and I thought it was just with other actresses, so it's just me. The only person that gets just me in a room is usually a director, Erica Lindbeck, or my husband. So right now you guys are in like third place of awesome. And how I do Q&As, I'll talk about the business, but honestly, this is kind of like you're my living room. And so it can have something to do with your goals or business, and sometimes being successful in a field, it's the same to be successful in any field. So you might have some questions that have to do with animation or not, and that's okay. Keep it clean, because it's not after midnight, but we're here for a reason, and right now we'll just call it Sacred Space, and you get to know me a little better. I think we're supposed to use the mic so that people can hear it, but it's not like there's like a million people in here. So my name is Mela Lee. How many of you guys already know who I am, by chance? There's one person here who doesn't. Well, then that's all that matters, right? I'm the girl that she likes. That's so sweet, you guys. So he's like, I'm her boyfriend, so I'm supporting her loves. Your boyfriend looks amazing. Like, great cosplay, man. This is over the top. I love it. So I'm a voice actress for film and television and gaming. And I say film and television because I do animation and gaming, but I also do ADR, which is post-dialogue recording, and that's been a big part of my career and allowed me to work with some really amazing directors on the film side and some great projects. Anime is what opened that door up for me. So my first few things that I did were anime. And anime, as you know, is a time code situation. It's dubbing. So it's kind of voice replacement. You're replacing the Japanese actresses or actors. And it was a learned skill. I had a show called Saint Tail that I did, and Steve Kramer was the director, and he walked me through how to listen to your beeps, beep, 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 and then you've got to match your flaps. And he was really patient. My first anime, I happened to be the lead in it. So they were super patient and taught me, what to do, and allowed me to have a way to make a living here and there. And what was great about that is that I never dreamed of being an animation artist. I never knew about anime. I was not exposed to it at all. I grew up in a family that was very academic, so we didn't watch much television. It was metered. So it was news, world events, and a super grown-up story, because I was 12, and why would a 12-year-old want to watch cartoons? You know what I mean? It was, you're grown up now. So it was a very interesting and new world. It was as if I'd gone to a foreign country, and I'm learning about the art and falling in love with it as a grown woman. So I was doing an anime at Bang Zoom in Burbank, and an engineer had said, I have a friend who works at Warner Brothers. He's working on a show called The Gilmore Girls, and he needs someone to voice replace for one of the best friends of one of the leads, Lorelai. And I thought, oh, that's so exciting. He goes, do you mind if I submit your name? And I was so excited, and then like a year went by, and the phone rang, and he's like, hey, this is Joe. Did Sean tell you I was going to call? So obviously I didn't get the job that I was submitted for, or someone had recommended me for. But a year later there was a job, and he called me, and I had it, like, because of the audition. So sometimes you don't get the job or the audition right away, but it doesn't mean that the director or the boss isn't considering you for another position. You might put in to be a receptionist, and they're like, my gosh, she's so overqualified for this. So they get this one receptionist, and you didn't hear back from the job, and 6 months later they're like, but we do have something that pays twice as much. And so we have to measure our failures, what we consider failures. I like to call failures our prepayments for success, so you own it when you get there. right? So, yes.
Bill once said that failure can be the best teacher.
It definitely is. He was saying that failure can be the best teacher, and I think a lot of times I used to do ministry and do disaster relief, and we've had some terrible fires and some mudslides in California, and in a situation that is so random, like a storm or a tornado or an earthquake, one of the number one questions people will ask is why? Why would this happen? She was such a good person, or he was such a good person. In a perfect universe, it wouldn't work. People are like, well, I thought God loved us, or whatever you want to call God. Why did this happen? Well, if he created a world where we could put our hand on the stove and it burned until it skin melts off, would that be nice? Because we don't feel pain. So it's like we have to have mistakes or failures or things that cause us anguish sometimes for correction. And then when it's a random event, the lesson too is that we're a very tiny speck in a very large universe. And sometimes when we are creating trash or hurting people's feelings, we feel like we're huge and we're kind of like a giant, like causing trouble in our path. And as much as I don't ever want anything bad to happen to anyone, the reminder in a disaster is how similar we all are. When I was in a disaster relief shelter, you'd have people that had Jaguars just the same as people that could barely afford a Ford Fiesta. So everyone's in the same place because we're human beings, and Earth is bigger than us, and then the galaxy is millions of billions of times bigger than the Earth. So it kind of puts it into perspective. And that being said, when I first started doing conventions, one of my first conventions was Comic-Con San Diego, which is probably 20 times bigger than this one. It's kind of ridiculous. And from a girl who didn't grow up watching television, didn't know a lot about the gaming and the graphic novel universe, it was very overwhelming. It was literally a foreign country to me. And I was in a show with Vic Mignogna. It was called Vampire Night. And people were walking by with my character on it. They give you an anniversary type bag for Comic-Con to carry all of your stuff in it. It's a huge backpack. It's like this tall. So here was Yuki Cross, and I thought, oh, other people have heard of this, because I had no idea, none. And then I was signing, and there was a little camera in front of us, and people were coming around from behind, and there was, Vic was on one side and Ezra Weiss was on the other, and we were signing, and everyone was really nice, but I was so nervous that I didn't really pay attention. I wasn't super present. I didn't know about time passing. I didn't know if it had been 10 minutes or an hour. I was just, honestly, having someone visit you and ask you for your autograph it's very surreal. So I'm signing, and my friend Walter, who was the Black Power Ranger, he walks up to me and he goes, Mela, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me you were in this show? And I thought, because you're a grown man, why would you watch anime? Like, I had no idea, right? He's like, are you kidding? Everybody watches this show. It's so cool. You're Yuki Cross? And I was like, well, you're like the one person who's this excited. He goes, excuse me? He's like, turn around. And so I turned around, and there was a line going all the way outside of the convention center onto the street. And even worse, there was a Jumbotron like screen behind me, and this here was me that big with Vic, and I was like, like I don't know, pick my nose, I was like, I could have just been, I wasn't of course, but just I had no idea that my entire life was on this big screen, and I was not petrified, but a little bit nervous. And that year, Vic and I went to Australia and to New Zealand as well for Vampire Night and some other shows that we did. And there was people that were shaking and, trying to talk. And this one girl, she's like, I'm so nervous to meet you. And I was like, I just traveled to a foreign country, like to Australia for the first time. There's like 1,000 people here. I'm nervous too. And I was it's just new. And what was difficult for me to figure out how not to be just like starting a brand new school is how it felt every time I went to a convention, because I was excited to be there, and then someone would go, so in episode 3 volume 2 you were wearing this amulet, and I was like, oh, for crying out loud, it's a cartoon. I didn't know what. She's like, well, it changed, why? And I was like, it's like you can say, I don't know, or wow, that's a great question. I think this is probably not going to work anymore. You can change you can say you don't know, but it's almost like a test when you don't know that you're allowed to say, we don't know the answer. So I was so nervous, and Vic would just teach me how to answer and just be a human being. Like, oh, that's a great question. Thank you so much for paying attention to the design. The artist actually made that decision, and I think I'll ask them next time I see them at a convention, because I'm a fan as well. And if you want to know the answer, I would as well. And so it started to occur to me that I am like the people in the audience. I'm the high school student, the college student, the person who's in the job that you kind of like but you don't love. Like, all of you guys are me. And all of a sudden I wasn't so nervous, because I'm just talking to myself. Because we all feel the same things. And there's a passion in me, because I had a horrible high school experience. Like, I moved a lot. And like my last high school, it was a private girls' school. We had a uniform. It was a red sweater with a white cross and a charcoal black skirt. Sound familiar? Like, literally, I was made to play Reen in Fate's Day Night. And the girls were really mean.
I think that's everywhere.
Right? And like my grandmother raised me for the first 6 years of my life, and then my mom took custody of me. So they were kind of fighting sometimes to be like, well, you can call me Mommy. And then my mom's like, well, I'm your real mom. So I just started calling them Anita and Pamela so that neither of them would win. But it meant that I had two moms. And so I remember being in high school, and there was a girl named Nina. I won't say her last name. But she would, and I didn't even understand. I was ahead in school, so I'm like 13 in high school, not really understanding how mean people can be. And she's like, isn't that funny? Mela has two moms. And I thought, what is she talking about? I had no idea that she meant my parents were gay, which is fine, but that's not what was happening. And so I was dealing with being bullied for something that didn't actually exist.
And why didn't you punch her in the face?
I didn't know. And I was a good girl before recently. Like, I was such a good girl. I'd never wanted to be in trouble. It was just, I didn't have it in me to yell or to fight back. I don't know if anyone else is like, I'm outgoing now, but I was shy then. Like, I was smart and good at what I did, but I didn't know how to voice. I didn't know how to say, you're a real jerk. I didn't have curse words. I didn't, not that that's the only way you can tell somebody to off, but it does help. And so knowing that when I was at conventions or in a room like now, I'm talking to Mela, I'm like, gosh, if there were conventions, I'd have been there. I love the community that I've seen all over the world of multiple cultures. My dad is Pacific Islander, Native American, Black, and Welsh, and growing up, it was people would be like, well, are you Mexican? Or, well, no, or white or black. And you're like, do I have to pick one of those? I didn't know where I belonged, and to be in an environment that's, Star Trek and even now Star Wars and anime, we have this celebration, literally, of color. And of all shapes and sizes and sexes and just abilities and expectations of men and women and beings, and how we all live together with different value sets. And that's what was cool about Vampire Night, is that, Yuki was raised as one thing, but was really another. And she loved both sides and saw flaws on both sides. So when she turns into a vampire and finds out that's who she really is, she doesn't hate herself. And interestingly enough, the story of Zero in Vampire Night, he hates vampires. His whole deal is he wants to kill them all, and when he becomes one, he hates himself. And the point is that if you'd had love for everyone, you're able to have more love for yourself. And so growing up in voiceover and in conventions and in anime, it's actually helped me to receive love back for myself, and to understand that it's important for me to feel comfortable in my own skin, and to not be so afraid because there's someone in the audience that I'm talking to that's like, oh my gosh, is she talking just to me? I wish somebody had done that, because I feel like I was completely by myself growing up. I was an only child, and I would move a lot because my mom was in the Air Force, and it was just a whole new set of bullies. It was nice to discover a new city, but to discover that almost every school has, like you just said, those girls. Now the good news is, when you grow up, those girls and those guys that are horrible, it's pretty rare that they're successful at anything. They peak in high school. Because the world doesn't work around garbage people. Not that anyone's garbage, but I would like to throw a few of them away. There was a girl who used to bully me, and my date for the senior prom was gay and beautiful, but not out yet. And Cameron was my date. He's like, I'd be so honored. And I got my dress from a thrift store, but it was beautiful Spanish lace. And when we walked in, everyone was like, wow, you guys look amazing. And I was feeling so good. And Greta said, isn't that a thrift store dress? And it was like that record scratch Mean Girls moment. And then she looked over at Cameron, who is super gorgeous, and was like, and aren't you gay?
At that point, you should have poured a bucket of blood on her head.
Right? But I felt like Carrie at that time. So I came from a really strict home and didn't know what to say. And so I meet Cameron 15 years later, and we're both doing well. And like the people that got bullied, one of my friends, Scott, who has transitioned into a woman and is now Robin, which is like, oh my gosh, you know? But he's an illustrator for Marvel. And, you know, Cameron he's really successful, and this person became an actor, and this person designs games, this person's, writing speeches for the Democratic, I mean, like, all of my friends from high school, and there weren't many, but all 10 of them, like, that are, like, real diehards, ended up taking over the world. And then Cameron says, we're at dinner, and he goes, I wonder whatever happened to Greta. And I was like, well, let me look her up. And Greta was one of those girls that, like, was kind of punk, you know, shaved the side of her head, had that hairstyle, and was just super cool, and had lots of money, and just liked to talk to people like they were just taking up air, right? And there was this picture, and I can't show it because it would be super mean, but I found it, and it was like, oh my God, like, didn't age well, right? Like, oh my gosh, like, there's like levels of like, you wouldn't wish this on your worst enemy, and it was just like, I sent it to Cameron, and he texted back, oh my God, everything is right with the universe. And it never occurred to me when I was terrorized or bullied that first of all, it's nothing personal. People can only make you feel how they feel inside. So, you know, if someone makes you feel like you're nothing, it's because they feel like they're nothing. People that love themselves, people that feel good about themselves and their jobs, they don't go out of their way to make you feel like nothing. It doesn't happen. So if someone makes you feel a certain way, first of all, it's your signal, and I wish I'd had it when I was younger, to not be around them. And the second thing is to be like, wow, you make me feel really gross every time I'm with you. So magnify that by 100. That's their everyday experience. I don't know where they're getting it from, if it's their family or their karma, you know, but it sort of makes you feel sorry for them. You know? He's like, no, I don't feel sorry for him. Well, I just want to let you know they all get their Greta moment. I'm now 20 years out of high school, and to a fault, every single beautiful human being, something good happened to him, and the people that were terrible are just struggling. The universe is made of pretty perfect math, and I never dreamed that I would be a voice actress. I didn't even know it existed. But being in a couple of animes in between I graduated with honors from Pepperdine, but I wasn't old enough to serve drinks, so you can't be a waitress in Los Angeles. So the next best job was to be a maid for Malibu Maid Service. It was $15 to $20 an hour. I'm like, I'll do it. And people would talk to you like, habla anglaise? And you're like, oh, for the love of God, I have a degree, but I promise I will scrub your toilet really good. Like, so it was really nice, and you know, you have to just swallow a lot of pride. But in between Malibu Maid Service and Valet of the Dolls, which is high-end parties, valet parking, nice cars, I would get an anime job or a commercial or a couple of games. And all I remember is that the people I worked with made me feel amazing. The engineers, the writers, the directors, and I didn't know anything about the world that I was in except that I loved being there. It was a safe space. And then to start working so much in it that there was no more maid service, no more, you know, but it meant I was really grateful for the work, which directors love that you're grateful. Because some people are like, of course I'm in it. those people don't last long because all of the gaming industry, all of anime, all of Hollywood really is made up of all the people that were great at chemistry, math, sciences, poli-sci, international relations. That's just who takes over the world. That's the big secret. I wish somebody had told me that the reason why those people are being so mean is deep down inside, they know that that's it. They get till they're like 18, and it's all downhill from there. Wouldn't you be miserable if you lived till you were 89 and you peaked at 18? That's a long time to be mediocre. So just let it go. And then here we are like 10 years into my career, and it's that many more people that I work with that are amazing. But then when you add conventions and the kindness of the people that I'll get to sit with or talk to, and how you share what my work has meant to you in your world, I mean, it's like, it's crazy. But then 3 years ago, someone was texting, and they ran a red light, and they ran right into the side of my car. And I left the planet for a minute, and when I came to, they were cutting me out of the car. And I was partially paralyzed. And, when I woke up in the hospital, there was a director from the show I was going to go be with. Several people from Bang Zoom were there in the hospital room. A friend of ours who's a drummer worked the trauma unit and gave me the Kim Kardashian suite. So of course I was too high to understand. But I had this huge hospital room with couches. So it was like a TV hospital room. Like all these people were like sitting around when I woke up. Jason Charles Miller, who was with Godhead and is a singer, but also produces like Van Helsing and some other things he did with Taliesin Jaffe, and so it was just this amazing group of people. They made sure I had handicap access, while I was on a walker, which is just not hot. For 6 weeks after my accident, almost every single day I had somebody spending the night with me, like a slumber party. And when we were there talking, and they're just getting me through, like from pain pill to pain pill, sometimes they would say, I've just been meaning to say thank you. There was this time I was having this day, and you said such and such. And I don't remember saying that. Like, it sounds like me, right? But it meant something to them. And for me, I realized that the bullies don't remember how mean they were to you. You were just in the process of their day. Just like I didn't remember saying something nice. But we have the profound ability with a single sentence to change somebody's entire trajectory. And I'm a math geek. I'm like, those coefficients are powerful. That you can change an equation that much just by edifying someone or lifting them up or asking them how their day was and actually meaning, how was your day? That made me feel a lot more powerful. And that started to really settle as I was, learning how to walk again, and I could see the kind of friends that I had that were really behind me and supporting me and made me laugh. And, we were like, I put my pants on by myself. Like, you get a sense of humor when you've broken your back. Because there's a lot of stuff you just have to ask for help. But then I was so lucky because my life and anime and gaming and voiceover had put literally hundreds of people around me that would support me. Physically, literally hold me up, and then you think, well, that's what it's about. That's what we're looking for in our careers. And so I think people are fascinated by voiceover, but my advice to anyone that isn't going to be in the voiceover industry is that's the benchmark. Where are the other coefficients in your equation? Are you it? Is everybody else a negative? You times the people around you, does it multiply bigger or make you feel smaller? Right? And so let's do the math, because that takes over the universe. And I took it off my answering machine, and then everyone got mad. But I used to say, sorry, I missed your call. I was like, no matter what the day brings, you matter. You mean something, and you can make a difference. And so we can't go to bed thinking we didn't matter. Whenever I was doing disaster relief, I didn't have money, but I had an ear and I would listen. And what you do for people every day is disaster relief. You just don't know where the earthquakes are in their lives. You don't know where the hurricanes are there. And they leave really big holes in people's lives from 4 years old, 14 years old, 44 years old, 84. It's a lot of discarded seniors. You know, so thank you for investing in my life when you come and tell me how we've connected before I even got to meet you. That's extraordinary, and it makes me feel like, my gosh, I have to work harder. I have to be a better person. I want to do this forever, and it does matter. But I'd like to make sure you know that without you thinking about it, coming up to my table or coming to the Q&A, you have quantum physically changed my life from afar away before we ever spoke a word, and I really appreciate that in my nerdy way. Super grateful. And so I don't know if you guys want to hear anything about the games. Is there any questions that you wanted to ask about what I'm doing, what I'm going to do that I can't tell you about that's super exciting? It comes out in 2019 and there's 3 of them. But oh my gosh. It's so crazy because now they do stuff a year in advance and then you can't talk about it for a year.
Is that torture?
It is, but like I'm gonna be the lead in like a major game, and it was so secret that when we auditioned, they didn't tell you the name of it. They just gave you lines. You got cast, you had to sign an NDA and a contract, and then they told you what it was. And I'm glad I didn't know what it was, or I would have been peeing just a little bit during the auditions. But yes, what's your question?
I have kind of like a silly question. I watched your Lindback and Lee
Yes.
thing, and I just want to know, like, how painful was that jalapeno accident? Like, how, like, really?
Yeah. Well, Erica Lindbeck, do you guys know who Erica Lindbeck is? Futaba? Okay, everybody nods their head.
Yeah.
So when Eric and I met, a friend of ours named Dora gave me a gift to go see Tony Oliver, who's the director for Fate Stay Night and Power Rangers and a bunch of other stuff, in an outdoor performance of Cabaret. So it was a horse paddock, and everyone sat on the ground. Well, I broke my back. Like, sitting for 5 minutes in a chair is excruciating. How am I supposed to get to the ground? So Erica was there, and we just started laughing, like uncontrollably, because it was a ridiculous situation. She's the nicest person, but it's like, what are people thinking? So I'm cold because I can't, so she gives me this big jacket, this parka and a hat, and I'm trying to get down to the ground, and then they put like some stuff, and I'm leaning back, and nothing feels sexier than this. Happy birthday, Mella. And so Erica and I became friends, and I decided that that was the better birthday present, was Erica. And so when Erica and I would get together, my then boyfriend, now husband, was like, you guys just need to film this. You're ridiculous. Because we're talented, but we're geeky. Like, we're both, we're just not the smoothest operators in the world, you know? And so we were going to do a podcast, and we said, well, why don't you film some of the background of the podcast so that we've got some, companion material. But we were such a mess because we decided we didn't want to practice. We just wanted to do like bumpers, or we'll make up some activity ideas, and we didn't really think them through. We're like, that'd be fun, right? And then we have one take because we do a whole season, like in one day. And so one season, Erica was like, Hot Pepper Gaming is super, Hot Pepper questions, right? And so KG Tang, who is Archer, among everything else, he's in Berserker with me as well. He's like, let's do hot pepper accents. And so he got the ghost peppers, and we had to take a bite and then do an accent. They all sounded like this. So I had a stepfather. I really wanted him to like me, and he loved hot peppers. And so one day he was like, I only like to drink water, and I love hot salsa. Do you like that? So I was like, yeah, I love hot salsa. I was British at the time, like real proper kid, so I've never had anything hot in my life, but had to keep that inside as a 6-year-old and eat an entire bowl of hot salsa with my stepfather because I wanted him to like me. So I have a good ability to kind of let it all sink in. So we did this hot pepper accents, and at the end, I don't know if you guys noticed, Eric and I are kind of competitive. We took the rest of the bite of the pepper, and she wouldn't give up. She wouldn't spit it out, so I wasn't spit it out. And we're just chewing. And like, my insides are made of lava. Erica, unbeknownst to most of you, is like about to have like the worst case of gas ever because it's like, it just tears you up inside. We're on the couch, and she's like secretly, silently trying to get me to laugh or like spit stuff out with all kinds of stuff that's going on. She will not spit it out. She's like, spit it out, spit it out, spit it out. And then I win, and she ends up like, she's paralyzed, like her mouth is paralyzed. So she tries to drink the water, but the milk just comes out of her mouth because she can't swallow. So literally in the credits, I'm like holding the water, and the credits we like did the extra cameras. You could see the crew, like they're laughing. There was like a bite mark on our sound guy's arm because he's trying so hard to hold the boom mic because our hashtag is beautiful disaster, and it's all real. Hairy cookies, because she drops something in every season, like every season. If you guys haven't tried Limbeck and Lee, it's a great pick-me-up, and that's what we thought. We're like, let's just invite you into our living room every now and then, and if you've had a crappy day, we'll make it not timely, so it's not always about, like, this thing is going to come out. It's never really about that. So, what time is it, you guys? We okay on time?
It's 5:38.
Okay. Though somebody just peeked in, and I was like, I don't think we've been here for an hour. How long is the panel? Is it an hour or is it 45 minutes? 45? Okay, so we're doing good. Do we have another question? Yes.
Were there like probably some like my favorite moments once we was on with Rachel?
Yes.
Rachel and her, were the gag endings from like Luke and Chip. What do you think? Why do you think the Spectacles of Arrows didn't work on her when Ragnar put them on? Like all the
Watch my technique. That's a good question. I didn't write it. I should ask the writer when I meet him. Patrick Seitz would be very knowledgeable about that.
Wait, Patrick Seitz?
He was a writer and a director. Patrick Seitz is amazing. And Ragnar. He's wonderful. True story, I took my first voiceover class with Patrick Seitz. So we were both kids, and he hadn't finished like his doctorate, and we thought we might, so we were doing odd jobs, and then he went to get his doctorate and then came back and took over the entire anime universe. But when we were in a Denny's in Hollywood, they call it Hollywood Denny's because it's right near all the movie studios, before I knew I was a singer and a writer, I'd written a song on the freeway. I got stuck, and it was called Kill Me in the Kindest Way, and Quentin Tarantino was in the next booth and was like, that's a really, like his people were like, do you write songs? Here's my card, right? And so it's like things start to come back in where it's like this production company hears you, and sometimes somebody, like I ended up not doing music for them. I wasn't ready, but the fact that they believed in me, I was like, what? But I sang the song out loud a cappella in Hollywood Denny's to Patrick Seitz, and then 10 years later I had a record deal, but we grew up together, literally in the voiceover world. Any other questions? Yes.
Are there any actors that I would like to work with, like Nolan North, Troy Baker, Robin Atkin Downs?
I work with Robin Atkin Downs a lot, actually, in the film industry. We did It together. Robin and I and Fred, you wouldn't know, but Bryce Papenbrook, you would. We were called in to help with sound design for the different Spectres, because Pennywise, he has a multiple personality, and so I am Judith, the female Spectre, and then a man named Fred who makes the most inhuman sounds when Judith is eating. I don't know if you've seen it, guys, so it's not a spoiler, but she's a loud eater. And so literally at the same time, I'd have Fred with me, and then Robin Atkin Downs on the other side making these like dimensional sounds, because mine are real high-pitched and then so guttural. Troy Baker I've worked with. I'd like to work more with him as a musician and as a voice actress. So, anyone else? Is it okay for me to answer another question, or?
One more. What about Ashley Eckstein, the voice of Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars?
I haven't worked with Ashley.
She's really good.
Okay, well I'm gonna give it a try. Yes.
Which voice acting role of yours has been the most
lucky. I don't have a lot of those. I did Ren and Ryugu in When They Cry, and she was kind of a higher voiced character and not cute. And so I remember, I was like, why did they hire me for this one? But it was because she has a lower crazy side. And apparently the original person, by the way, they did hire someone else for that job. I was at Warner Brothers. They said, could you come read for something? I started reading, and then they said, great, you're cast. And I was like, wait, okay, so when do we start? They're like, in 5 minutes, could you take a break? So I started right then. But it was because she could do the voice, like, they'd be very cute, but then she couldn't be scary. And so I was like, I want to need that if I were you. And it was that kind of strange out-of-body experience because it turned out she wasn't. But right now I'm starting to do heavier games for a pretty large company. And they're super good with not doing heavy stuff for more than a couple of hours. But I spent most of my career being quite proper and doing Blaze Blue and, Rose and Maiden and a magical English, continental creatures and telling people they had magic in them. And so that was how I grew up. My mom was British, and so I would channel that. But recently, since the accident, I would watch these games and really I was paralyzed, you guys. I have superpowers. I died and came back. So I'm like all into this. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like that unbreakable person. But I've been doing more warriors. So a bigger woman who wants to know if you are coming with me or not. And so that is very different from Shinku from Rose Maiden. And so I had not ever done those voices. I don't know where they came from, but I think deep down inside I'm like, I'm a warrior. So all these warrior roles have been coming to me. And then they're like, all right, you're going to scream. Well, I've never done that before. I've learned how to scream just as a girl, but as a warrior, how would I scream? And it's so different from your body, So that was new for me. It's not hurting me, but you have to really be as strong. So as I'm getting bigger and better in my warrior ways, now that I'm healed from my back, I realize I have to go further than I was before. I have to become strong. I have to become 7 feet tall in my mind so that I can be a warrior throughout a war, not just in my room, wishing. Is there another question?
Well, me?
Yes.
Are you planning to ever branch out from voice acting and doing other things possibly in the creative realm?
Well, I was singing at the same time. I have a band called Magnolia Memoir. Please follow us. We took a little break while I was learning how to walk again. We have a new album coming out in June. Our first single, Afterlife, will be coming out in March. And it's interesting because I dreamt about the song Afterlife and started writing it before my accident. And then I finished it, it's the first song that opens the album, and it was like, what is it? We were working in a coal mine, and now we're looking at the bright lights, and we were dripping with diamonds for friends. And you can't remember when, but something in a torn old photograph gave a clue, and you remembered that you passed the point of no return. You got them shadows on the White House alone, and everything is what you made it. And you were straddling a dirty white line, and everyone is so sedated. But you opened up your eyes, oh, something lately, oh, been trying to save me, oh, just might get it right. So welcome to the afterlife. So please follow Magnolia Memoir or just the Mellowly on Instagram and Twitter, and I promise to please sign up for my email. What I'll do is make sure you guys have sneak peeks behind the scenes from where we're shooting the videos, and as much as I can share of my job life, like those 2 big jobs that I have this year, they won't let you film anything. But I promise you'll be the first guys to know. I think we have time for one more question before they kick us out, yeah? Go ahead.
Do you prefer voice acting over live acting?
I think they're both live acting. I think the only difference is no one's filming us. But when you're voice acting, especially for games, you're very physical. I can't get that sound of being a warrior without, being in that space. I think the days of voice acting where you could just have it be here are over. You guys can tell the difference. We have to draw you in with humanity, and humanity comes with, live acting, basically. I think that I will enjoy both. Voiceover is much faster, so I think it helps me. The few things I've done on camera, we don't get to study scripts quite as long as on-camera actors are accustomed to. So we're also able to give 7 or 8 different kinds of reads. We're not super married to it, and because I didn't grow up in front of the camera, I'm not as self-conscious. I don't think I have to be 12 pounds. I don't, so I'm able to not have an ego about it. So it lets us explore more, because I think our sense of self is different from just our face. Does that make sense? So it's hard sometimes to see yourself on camera, because I feel like I'm a 12-foot warrior, or I'm a tiny 3-year-old, pixie that's actually 1,000 years old. So it's hard when you are like just in this body, and I love that people are so kind and like, oh, you should be on camera, or, I get compliments, and it's lovely, but it's hard. I think it's just like when you hear your own voice or see yourself in pictures, we all see something different than the rest of the world does. So I have to learn how to just let that sink in and not judge myself as much on camera. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed.
Hey, wasn't that fun? I know I had a great time. If you want to see some more great videos just like that, you can click right over here. Also, click here to subscribe to our channel and leave a thumbs up and a comment in the section below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.